Hi guys, so I'm Hannah from Hannah Marie Coaching, and I'm here today to talk to the lovely Kate Stewart. And Kate Stewart is the founder of I Know This Girl. So this is a community for women to discover their power within through diverse well-being events and holistic practices. And we're going to dive into like self-acceptance and like managing anxiety today, because it's something that is very close to Kate's heart, and she's suffered with it herself, which I'm sure many of you have as well. And it's like a big topic at the minute. So yeah, we're going to dive into that. And also on the side, she has a non-profit that she set up this year with her friend Alice. So that's helping running events for women that can't quite afford it. So welcome, Kate. It's great to have you.
Hi, lovely. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. So there's so many places I want to start, like tap into this, because I think like anxiety is such a big, well, it is like a big word, isn't it? But it is kind of something
Mm,
that people are more aware of in the last kind of year or two because of what's going on in the world. So
yeah, still a bit of a taboo as well because it affects like 1 in 3. It's like the statistics are huge with depression and anxiety. So I feel like it's not talked about enough.
and it needs to be, right? So I
Yeah.
know that you suffered from like extreme anxiety when you were younger, and I'd love to just hear if you're happy to share like what kind of because you explored a lot of different tools through like sound healing and personal training and all sorts of things. Like was there like a moment when you realized that you had kind of this anxiety? Like what was your journey with that?
Yeah, let's try and be concise. It's really hard to like know where to begin. I could talk for like an hour and be like, have I covered the point? Um, yeah, it I guess it started. I won't go into kind of the reasons like behind because that's a whole other subject, but I I didn't have like the best upbringing, and I had quite a traumatic time when I was around 11 to kind of 16. And so the anxiety started when I was 11, and I didn't know that it was anxiety. Like I would not be able to keep down food because my IBS, I had one of the symptoms was IBS, and then sleeping at night I'd wake up with palpitations, again a symptom of anxiety, but I didn't know that it was anxiety at the time. So I had it like quite chronic for such a long time. And I remember my mum a couple of times taking me to the hospital, and they just gave me tablets to try and keep my IBS at bay, and no one ever asked like, oh, so what's going on at home, like how do you feel? Like obviously the IBS is just a symptom, but they just try and treat the IBS. So I didn't actually know what it was. So for a huge part of my life, like waking up with palpitations, getting kind of the sweats when I got really anxious in a certain situation, if I was put on the spot or public speaking, I could just about get away with it, but I would just sweat profusely and my heart was going so fast and I'd have to kind of rush in and out to the bathroom. So I had all of the symptoms. And it wasn't really until I understood that it was anxiety, I was like, oh my god, that for me was normal. So I just presumed that everyone else suffered from palpitations on a daily basis. I knew I had IBS, but I didn't think like the two were linked. I just like that was my norm, like kind of waking up with night sweats was my norm, and I never really spoke about it to anyone. So I was, and when I actually found out what it was, I was like, oh my god, I've been carrying this for so long. But at that time I was probably in my like early 20s, and then my attitude was like, okay, well, I've got to fix it. Like I'm broken and I've got to fix it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I went on a journey to then try and fix it, but I wasn't accepting that it was part of me. I
Right.
wanted to get rid of it because obviously the symptoms aren't pleasant, and I thought I will be a much better fully functioning human if I can get rid of the anxiety. And that's not necessarily a healthy place to be because I wasn't accepting that, okay, it's just part of me and what I need is tools to learn how to manage it, but I'm never going to fully get rid of it.
Yeah.
So I set myself quite a big goal of trying to get rid of it, but actually everyone has suffered anxiety at
Mm,
some point. Even if you don't suffer from it, you might get it in like certain occasions, like you might get it before flying or before, an interview. Like everyone has experienced symptoms of it at some point. It just might not affect you on a daily basis. um
absolutely. I feel like that's, yeah, do you know, I can relate to so much of what you're saying, because looking back, actually, I had a light bulb moment. I probably had anxiety when I was younger as well. I always used to get stomach cramps before I'd go to school.
Mhm.
And maybe that was probably anxiety. And I remember thinking it was the food I was eating, and it probably was just anxiety. But for me, it was going to school because I just didn't enjoy school. So for
Yeah,
me,
definitely.
it was like just made me feel anxious. And the point, like you said, I would go red when I would like have any attention on me at school. Absolutely hated it. Like public speaking, absolutely dreaded it. So I really relate to you. And I think it's just like a conversation we need to open up, right? Because we don't need to suffer in silence. And
Yeah.
I think what you said is the accepting that you had that is really important to kind of move forward with it. So
Yeah, accepting is a huge part of it because it's about being kind to yourself. So I think I threw myself into, like, before this world that I'm in now, I was a personal trainer, and therefore I would I would just put my body into, like, I wasn't necessarily being kind to myself. I'd put myself through extreme sports and set goals and ran marathons and triathlons, and that's amazing. But I also wasn't being kind to my body. I just knew that doing sports, because of the palpitations, almost, and I had so much energy through the anxiety, it almost kept it a bit at bay. But
mm,
that's a quite an unhealthy way to treat anxiety. Like I actually needed to look at like ways of calming my heart rate and calming my nervous system, because
yeah.
one of the symptoms or kind of, yeah, disorders I had through the anxiety was obviously your body is constantly in fight or flight mode, which meant I was in my sympathetic nervous system rather than my parasympathetic. And what happens is when you're in your parasympathetic is that's when your body can rest, digest, repair, your reproductive system is like switched on, and that's when you can kind of go and make a baby. But if you're constantly in the sympathetic, your body thinks that you are being chased by a tiger, which
Wow.
is why exercise for me was so comfortable, because my heart rate was so high that I was like, okay, well, I've got all of this anxiety energy that I can go and run, I can go to the gym, I can go for like hours on a bike. But then my stomach was really bad, I couldn't keep food down. um, I didn't have any periods, therefore I was infertile for such a long time.
Mm,
And now I understand that it's because my body thought that I was constantly being chased by a
mm,
tiger. From my nervous system's point of view, it doesn't know any different. So I was constantly in this anxious state, which of course my reproductive system had switched off. But at this time, again, I went to the doctors and they said, oh, well, do you want a baby now? And I said, well, no, I don't, but I'd like to know that I could. And they were like, well, come back when you do want to. For now, we'll put you back on the contraceptive pill. And I was like,
wow.
no,
No.
that's not looking, yeah, that's
This,
not looking at what was wrong. So I had PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, at the time, and the way that the doctors treated that was through putting me back on the contraceptive pill, because that keeps it at bay. But again, it's not curing it, it's
no,
just
it's
like
it's just
numbing
suppressing
the
it, isn't
symptoms.
it? And I think those things can be okay temporarily, but long term, it's like finding those holistic things that help you. And I think
Yeah.
like I feel like anxiety can be hard to define, like what it is. Like what is the, if somebody feels, well, first of all, like what are the tools you use to help when you kind of feel your anxiety coming on? Are there things you can recommend to women that can start helping with anxiety?
Yeah, there are so many tools out there, but it's also very personal to what works for
Mm,
you, because we're all so unique. So what works for me might not work for other people. But I guess over the years, I've tried many things, and also then I've tried many holistic practices to then help my hormones and help get me back on the track of having cycles again. So now I have a monthly cycle, and now I'm fertile, and I actually managed to cure my PCOS through just holistic practices.
Wow, that's amazing.
Um, and how I would calm my anxiety is I do acupuncture. Well, I not do acupuncture, I go to an amazing acupuncturist, and when she sees me, she can tell immediately from my pulse and from my tongue how anxious I am, because my tongue will tell her that my digestive system isn't functioning properly,
Wow.
and then my heart rate tells her whether I'm in a kind of a stress response anxiety, or like kind of what type of anxiety it is. So she will completely relax my nervous system, so that helps. But also that's treating a symptom, so you need to understand the root cause of why you're feeling anxious, and
Yeah.
that takes like years and years of therapy and talking to people. And I guess that's why I've created these groups with the events, is to try and support people so that they can open up and talk and maybe find out what's the root cause.
Absolutely. I think it's having that safe space, isn't it? Because like I
Yeah.
would say that I've had, well, everyone's had some sort of anxiety, but I definitely used to get anxiety around money, particularly not being
Mm,
good at managing money. And then I would literally look at my, overdraft, whatever it was, and get really, like you say, the heart palpitations and the just absolute stress. But it's
yeah.
like finding, I think it's the more aware you are of what your body's doing, then you know when you're not calm. Like you tend to see when your body feels calm and grounded, and when it's in that like fight or flight, like you say. So
Yeah, definitely. And it's
people,
doing then the things that make you feel calm. So what makes me feel calm might be different for other people. But I guess if I could give a few like things that have helped me,
yeah.
I know that if I'm kind of in quite a high state of anxiety, if I go and walk in nature, even
Mhm.
if it's summer, walking barefoot has been like scientifically proven to help ground us. There's a connection with our like feet and the earth. So if you can walk
Beautiful.
barefoot, that's really grounding. I even have like, it's called a grounding sheet, an earthing sheet on my bed to help
Oh,
ground energy as well. That's really good for inflammation as well. So
help.
walking barefoot and just being in nature around the trees and just focusing on really, really deep breaths. So there's different breath work techniques that you can do. One is called the 4-part breath, which is really, really simple to kind of Google online, and just doing that for 2 minutes, you're literally focusing on deeper inhales and deeper exhales. And
Mm,
by doing a longer exhale, it's sending a signal to your nervous system that it's okay to relax. So breath is like an amazing thing to calm the nervous system. So if you're just getting even a moment before an interview or before a pitch, if you focus on a 4-part breath or other techniques, which I'm happy to share, then you can really, really calm your nervous system. That
beautiful.
really, really helps.
It's having
Um,
those tools, isn't it? And I think nature, as you said, is such a big thing. Like that's always helped me. It helps to clear your head. And I think,
yeah,
I guess with anxiety, it's almost like when you're anxious, you're almost either, I think your mind has gone to the past or the future. So you're
yeah.
sort of worried about what could happen, although it hasn't happened. So as you say, if you bring yourself with the breath back to now, back to the
Mhm.
present moment, that is that what would you say that's part of anxiety, is that you're in the past or present and you're not really in the now?
Yeah, or even if your present situation, you feel like you're not in control of it. So it could still be something in the present, but it's something that you don't feel in control of your situation. So there's a fear of the outcome of what might happen, the fear of the unknown. So often it can, like if you're in the past and it's something traumatic, it can bring up anxiety. If you're worrying about the future, it can bring you anxiety. But also if you're not grounded in your current present situation,
Mm,
probably because you're not feeling in control, that can give you anxiety as well. And one of the hardest things, which I'm still learning, is actually being with the anxiety. Because if you're suddenly freaking out, like, oh, I'm anxious, I'm anxious, I'm anxious, you're gonna make it worse. And especially when you go into a panic attack, which luckily hasn't happened so often, but I have suffered from panic attacks, and you get so panicked that you're in a panic attack, and then you think you can't breathe, which makes you breathe even, like gets you
yeah.
into that worst state. And I've got to the point where I've told myself I'm so anxious that I've thrown up and then passed out, because I've told myself I'm having a panic attack, which are real things and really bad.
Mm.
But I've let myself go with it. I've gone with the panic, which is much easier said than done. It's like sometimes you're so spiraling out of control that you go with it. But I think over time you have to find tools to manage it. So if you can be really present and realistic about the situation, like, okay, rather than saying I'm feeling anxious, it's like, what am I feeling? Okay, my heart's palpitating, I can feel knots in my stomach, my body's trembling, and I'm sweating profusely. Let's say there's some of the symptoms. Or you're getting a bit of like a sensory overload, like everything is stimulating and feels like it's too much. Like noises sometimes bother me. But if you can just be with, okay, this is the symptom that's happening, you can almost calm yourself down, because you're like, okay, my heart's beating really fast, but I'm still here, I'm still alive, I'm not going to die, this isn't going to make me die. Like, there are worse things that could be happening. And if you can just be with the symptoms and really focus on like being present and calming the breath, this is all much easier said than done. Like, I still find this really hard. It's not easy, but it has really helped, because when you can take it away from like, I'm really suffering from an anxiety attack or a panic attack, and just be with the symptoms, you're no longer like going with the story of why it's so bad, and you're just focusing on the symptoms, and actually like the symptoms are worse in your head than in reality.
Right. That's so important. I love what you're saying. It's like that moment of awareness, even if you can catch it. And I feel like from what you're saying, what you're really passionate about is like being compassionate to yourself. Because if you just judge yourself all the time, like for example, me being anxious with money, that wouldn't help, and I would spiral, whatever would happen. Then you're in that fight or flight. Whereas I think if you just notice that, as you said, it takes a bit of the it takes some of the anxiety away, if that makes sense. It seems to lessen it, not make it too bad, but
it helps give you like a power almost. So I guess
Mm.
like you're somehow then in control of it, because you're aware of what's happening, rather than kind of going out of your body, you're coming into your body. So it's like what you were saying with the money, if that made you anxious, you could have just avoided that problem for the rest of your life to avoid the anxiety, but it never would have got any better. And actually you've done a lot of work on like money mindset, and you've actually faced and gone into that fear. And it's not easy, is it?
It's not, it's like facing the fear is so hard. It's hard for us humans, right? We don't like the unknown, like you were saying. But I almost see it, and I always talk about this myth, but it really reminds me of the myth of Persephone, right? Where she gets abducted into the underworld. And I know it sounds quite heavy, but it's almost like, she's like taken into the underworld so that she can see her, like, face the unconscious, face the shadows, because actually then it's sort of this metaphor. She comes and she's reborn into the spring summer phase up on the earth. So it's like going into that, discomfort, even though it's hard. If you can take a deep breath and go into it with that awareness, then when you shine a light on that darkness or that anxiety, it actually helps for you to feel lighter and clearer eventually. Takes time, but I just think that's like a beautiful story to kind of bring ourselves back to that. We're not like you say, we're not going to die. It's not forever. And I think like emotions, it's like emotion, it's in motion, so it's gonna disappear again. It's not going to be there forever. But having that compassion is important. So
compassion, and you're not gonna like solve all your problems overnight and with one magic pill. I think I went on a bit of a journey I tried like everything, to try like all kind of tablets, holistic treatments, plant medicines. Like I was always on like, okay, what can cure my anxiety? And unfortunately there is no magic pill. There isn't like one thing, but there are many things that can help. And like Persephone, unfortunately you do have to go into the darkness at some point. Like and better in a safe space, like if you're with a really good therapist or have really good friends around you, or like a women's circle. But
Absolutely.
unless you go and actually look at where it's stemming from, and like give yourself some love and compassion from that time when it was happening, and see if you can actually nurture yourself as your older self, nurturing your younger self, you kind of have to do that, because like disease is like a dis-ease in the body that manifests from somewhere. And if you're like, our nervous system doesn't forget, so it's like you're clinging on to this kind of pain, and then that manifests as trauma in the body. So mine was polycystic ovaries, infertility. I had cancerous cells in my uterus. Was it my uterus? I had I had cancerous cells as well, and it were all manifested because I just numbed out and I wasn't dealing with that trauma. So you, unfortunately, like, you have to deal with it. But it's taken me a long time, and I would never say to anyone that I'm cured. Like, I still suffer from anxiety, but I can go around my everyday feeling much more calm and comfortable and grounded in my body, knowing that I have like tools that I can use that will bring my heart rate down. And looking back, I'm so much better than I was before. And I think if you put in the work and you can see these small changes, and then you start to feel more strong and more grounded and more comfortable in your skin. But it takes time.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's beautiful that you shared, because I think it shows to people that are in that space that it is possible to shift and move into that space of deeper awareness and feeling calmer. So like, if somebody's really feeling anxious, because there's been a lot going on in the world now, like, I know you said about the self-awareness piece, is there any like little simple thing they can start doing as a daily thing that's super easy that can just help them kind of like observe when that anxiety is coming up, or like just look at it with compassion? How can they do that?
Yeah, I guess one way to, if you're getting it every day, and the first thing you do is wake up and you kind of look at the news or look at your phone, you're immediately stimulating your sympathetic nervous system. So you wake up and you're really calm, you've had a good sleep, and then you're immediately getting into that space. Like, it's really helpful to have a morning practice, whether that's like doing 5-10 minutes of breathing. It doesn't have to be like an hour's ritual morning practice. If you can walk outside and breathe in fresh air before you get to your laptop, listen to a track that helps you feel calm, or like a short meditation. Like, you want to get your body into a grounded state of which meditation, sound meditation, listening to kind of certain tracks online, like different frequencies. There's so many on YouTube. If you were to Google kind of healing frequencies for feeling calm or grounded or more focused, and you do that before you work, like, you're already starting your day from a more relaxed place. And yes, you can get anxious, but you become a bit more resilient. Like, you wouldn't necessarily get there so quick. And if you do get there, then it's not going with it. It's kind of stopping, retreating. Can you close your eyes and can you breathe just for 5 minutes? That will get your heart rate down.
Yeah, that's good tips, I think, because it's like, it's such a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Like, our mind talk is so powerful that we don't realize. So I always tell people as well, clients and myself, is like, what are you doing the last few minutes before you go to bed as well? Because generally what state you're in when you go to sleep, you wake up feeling like that. So similar of what you said, if it's meditation you do in the morning, like, what else can you do in the evening to calm your nervous system down? Because I feel like it's anxiety is almost like we don't feel safe in our body. We feel like somehow, like you said, numb before, but we're disconnected from our body and what we're feeling. So we almost need to reconnect with it in some way, and like exercise or even yoga has been so helpful for me. That's another great tool for people as well.
You're so right there, because you're like, I didn't feel like emotions. Like I even struggled with, people would say like, how are you feeling? I'd be like, fine. And then someone's like, a therapist said to me like, give me an emotion. And I kept saying words which weren't, she was like, no, they're not emotions. Like I was so disconnected to like how I felt in my body, because it was just numb. Like I'd had so many years of anxiety from trauma, and what our bodies are so intelligent, and it serves us at the time. So my memory is really bad, really, really bad. I don't remember like years of school, and it's because my memory is wiped, and it was to protect me at the time from trauma. But it's also numbed me. So like the years of anxiety have just left me really numb. So the one thing is, find it really hard to get back in touch with my feelings of like, how am I feeling? And it's a really kind of, that's a long journey as well. But obviously having moments of silence, like meditation, which I find really hard, being in like sitting with myself and being in meditation. But that's probably why. It's probably because I'm disconnected from my feelings. So if you can sit in meditation, that's obviously why I do sound meditation, because that enables me to get to that space a little bit easier. Writing down, like journaling, writing down, starting to write down like how you feel, celebrating small wins. If you were able to kind of acknowledge when you were anxious, and if you got yourself out of it like a little bit quicker than the time before, like celebrate these wins. But you almost have to have a journal and write things down in order to have that awareness of how far you've come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise you're not being present, and you can just keep going, and you don't think you've improved, but actually you probably have. Like as soon as you become more aware, and you can take time to think about what you did during that day that was helpful for your nervous system to keep you grounded, what you did that maybe wasn't so helpful. You were already anxious and then you looked at the news and it made it worse. Okay, if I can note that down and then try not to do that next time, then you're kind of avoiding situations that can send you off into a spiral.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And also I think I keep losing what I'm going to say today.
Don't worry.
The awareness piece again. Oh, the noticing what is good for you. Because I think you can think that it's good for you, but it's not. Like you said something before, which was a light bulb for me, is the kind of how some exercise can be addictive, right? Like that. I got into the HIIT session. HIIT sessions a lot, and maybe too much actually. And I'm a bit like the all or nothing kind of person. I realized I was doing, I think, 3 a week, which is fine. But now you've just light bulb moment. It probably was because I was doing that to almost avoid how I was feeling. Like, let's use this anxiety into that exercise. So I think it's just observing what your sort of patterns and what your habits are like on a daily basis. Because as you said, we're all different. And I think the feeling, because we're humans and we want to shut down and we've all experienced trauma of some kind, I think that numbing is something that we do a lot. So I think
it's so subconscious.
it's so, isn't it? And I think it's also being patient with ourselves, because as you said, it's not like there's going to be a switch that you just flick and everything's okay. It's almost like asking the people around you, or people that know that you feel safe to open up with, and actually asking, even close friends for support, to check in with them as well, and getting in touch with communities of women that you can feel
so
safe to share
important.
that, isn't it?
Yeah, because anxiety is like when you don't feel safe. So if you can, and which is really hard to find those people that help make you feel safe. But now I've got such a beautiful community of like friends that I just know if I'm having a moment I could call and they would pick up the phone and just like be there for me at any time, which is really nice. But so it's important to have people around you. But there are also like free groups and women's circles and women's charities that you can call. There's always someone. It's about kind of finding your people and the right people to talk to.
Absolutely. So because I relate so much to your journey as well, because you've like gone down a lot of different career paths. That's probably the Sagittarius in me, and I've done a ton of things as well. So like, because you started out as a project manager and then you went into personal training, and then you went into selling sound bowls, which I think is when I first met you, you were selling the sound bowls. So
Hannah and I met online as well,
yeah, there
didn't
we go.
we met
Online.
online in the first lockdown.
Yeah, in lockdown on a business, didn't say that, in big business symposium. And yeah, we connected. So you can meet your soul tribe wherever, because we've like connected and kept in contact on Zoom and like feel really connected to you. So it's beautiful. You can have those relationships on Zoom. But yeah, going back to this,
that is the beauty of like,
yeah, it's beautiful. So you've explored all these different areas. So what was like, did you have a light bulb moment? Because I know that you wanted to do something that was fulfilling to you and bring this into like a business. Was there like a light bulb moment you were like, yeah, I just need to put this out there and create something for other women to support them in their journey?
yeah, good question. I don't know if there was a light bulb moment. I guess when I left the corporate world, like I have had so many jobs, and I think it does link to like my childhood and like having anxiety, but is it the same in relationships? Luckily I'm in a long-term relationship now, but I
can
would
relate
like,
to you as well.
not like settle. So I have this thing around like not settling until I found what it is where I feel like safe and fulfilled, and am I doing good for the world. So when I was doing project management, I had this feeling that it didn't really feel like me, like I wasn't necessarily being authentic, and I also wasn't really getting anything out of it personally, because I wasn't helping people like I was helping rich people get richer. That wasn't like my goal, and I wasn't necessarily working for brands that I felt really passionate about, so I didn't really have that passion. And at the time I felt really passionate about exercise and thought, well, exercise makes me feel good, I want to help other people feel good. I also would get that Sunday night feeling where I couldn't sleep and I'd get anxious because I was worried about maybe what like the Monday morning, another week of work, and what my boss might say. I didn't work anywhere that was so awful, but like everywhere I worked still spurred some kind of anxiety in me. And I thought, well, I think I need to work for myself. So I was really passionate about exercise, and I loved being a trainer for like quite a few years. It was the first time I set up my own business, and there were parts of it I really loved and like still love. But I also felt that I was focusing on the body and not the mind. And at that time, I started delving into meditation and mindfulness and a lot of various holistic practices. And I think just through my own experience, I got more drawn into work that was focusing on calming the body and mind rather than energizing it. So I somehow then got into sound and the sound healing world, and worked with the singing bowls for good few years, maybe 2.5 years. And it wasn't until January this year, January 2021, that I just had this feeling which caused a lot of anxiety. I was working in partnership with a company that would give me much more financial security, like I would have had a studio and a lot more security. But I just had this feeling that it wasn't right, and that I needed to set up a business on my own and help other women. But I just didn't really know what kind of what path I was going to take. But I also knew that it was a fear that I had to face. Like if I never set something up on my own and never had the opportunity to talk in front of a group of women, although that's like my worst fear, like public speaking is definitely a thing that gets my anxiety. But I also have this awareness that the more you do something, the easier it gets. And you speak to anyone that's done like many lives or public speaking, and they say like once you've done it for a few months, it just gets easier and easier. So I've just thrown myself into that, and I'm still getting there. But again, I can celebrate the small wins, because if I do an event now, I get anxious, but I get way less anxious than all the times before. So I know that I'm progressing, but I still haven't got to a point where I'm like, oh, I love public speaking, because I don't. I don't. I'm still on that journey.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, I wanted to set up on my own and do my own thing. So now I sell my own singing bowls and meditation chimes. And then the not-for-profit side of the business I set up with Alice this year is like not just events, it's more workshops and programs where we get a group of women together and then we want to keep nurturing them. So we'd recently did a month-long program where we would meet online and we had an element of life coaching, and then we had in-person kind of half-day retreats in London where we would always start with like a sharing circle and check in with how people were feeling. I shared some anxiety kind of calming exercises. We do breath work, yoga, sharing little tips of like different breathwork techniques that they could go away and do on their own.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then eat together, and then I would end the day with sound healing. So that just felt right. Like it felt that that's a beautiful way to, rather than just go to a yoga class and leave, like you get the feeling of being grounded in your body, but you haven't made connections and you're not part of a community. It would take a lot longer for you to make friends than if you're at a half-day retreat and there's time for tea and eating together and you get to chat. Like you just end up feeling like it's more of a safe space. So that's our goal, is to create more of a like a community where people can come and like open up about how they feel, and we can support them and nurture them.
It's so important that you hold that safe space to just, I think a lot of times we just need to be seen and heard. So you allowing people to check in with themselves is an amazing thing. And I'm all about vulnerability. It's something I've been exploring more recently, and I actually think it's okay not to be okay. We need to embrace that, in this
totally.
And and I love that you followed that nudge. You didn't know how it was going to happen, you followed that, because that's what we need to do in life. And now you're running these beautiful workshops and classes for people. So like moving, I could literally talk all day, but just like moving towards the end, so how can women work with you? What's the best way that they can get in touch?
So I offer, like, if anyone wants to reach out just to have like a chat, I offer like a free 20-minute discovery call. So on my website there's a discovery call page, so I'm up for just chatting to anyone if they want like more details on I guess like tips on anxiety. Obviously I've gone quite heavily down the like trying to get my hormones back into a more regulated pace, and now have monthly cycles again. So I'm up for sharing any advice with anyone around that. My events are mainly in London. So we've got a workshop. We've got a workshop coming up on Sunday. So at the moment I do about monthly workshops which involve yoga, breath and sound, and often like time for getting to know each other and having a bit of a sharing circle. I'm going to start doing monthly circles online as well. But at the moment we're just starting to kind of grow and develop the event side of things. I think things are still almost quite slow after COVID, like it's taking a little bit of time to build. But our events are in London, and then I have my shop online if anyone's interested in sound meditation tools.
Amazing. And you've also got an amazing Facebook community. It might be helpful for people. What's that called? Remind me.
That is, I have to remind myself.
I'll put all the notes in the description.
Yeah, but we can put it in the description. It's something around like women's community, but it's quite a long word. We can share
I'll put that in there so people can connect with you, because honestly Kate shares great tips on Instagram and in her group as well. So if you want those tips on anxiety, you did a great video about that one you guided me through, of the hands on your leg. Things like that.
It's on my Instagram channel.
Exactly.
And I will be doing next year in 2022, I'll be doing retreats as well. So retreats will be amazing. Spend a week together. Amazing. So I do have on my website at like the bottom of the page, you can sign up to my mailing list, so then I'll share updates.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely do. Like, honestly, Kate has such a big heart. She has so much to share with people. So sign up to her mailing list.
I want to share one more thing that's helped me recently, because I've tried lots of like herbal remedies and stuff that help with anxiety and calming. And I've recently been taking this, I don't know if you can see it on here, it's CBD. it's made by a company in Bristol. I found them in Glastonbury. Like
Okay.
they source it and they make it, and it's the guy was saying it's really important to get organic
Right.
when it
CBD
comes
oil.
to CBD,
Yeah.
but you need like a really good quality, because I've tried it before and it hasn't worked. But I just take a spray of that. This is 5%. You can get 10%, which is more expensive but stronger.
Okay.
And I spray it under my tongue in the morning and then before bed. And I've noticed my sleep is better
Beautiful.
and my heart rate is like a little bit calmer. Like I can tell the difference when I've taken it and when I haven't. So that's really helpful, because there's so much out there
Yeah.
like that you can take with anxiety. But if you like, that for me is like my quick fix, like if I
That's
just
great.
want to feel calmer.
Self. And lavender oil is really good. I use that just to help me calm myself down before sleep. So just lavender oil on your pillow and on your sort of wrist,
Yeah.
breathe it in. That's really good. So one like last thing, if there's like one piece of wisdom or like guidance that you want to leave women with about what everything we've shared, I know there's a lot, but what do you want to leave people with?
Oh, okay. I guess like each one of us are like perfect, unique beings, and we are like not broken. So like
Mm.
try not to kind of focus on there's something wrong with you and that you need fixing. Like we are all perfect and we're all on this journey, and there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. And I think, yeah, for me, like actually learning to like face those fears is always worth it. Like you never try something that you're scared of and be like, oh, I wish I didn't try that. Like you always feel better of doing things that you're scared of. So yeah, like learn to
Absolutely.
face your fears as well.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm getting goosebumps. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so from the heart. Well, thank you so much, Kate. It's been a joy to connect with you and hear about more about anxiety, because I think it's such a important topic, and I've learnt some things myself. So grateful for
Yay.
your time and being vulnerable. So thank you so much.
Thanks, lovely. Yeah, nice speaking with you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.